Okay, so are you ready to really dive deep into this one?
Always ready for a deep dive, especially when it comes to dragons and, fantasy worlds and all that good stuff.
Well, perfect. Because today we are tackling Onyx Storm.
Yeah.
That's right, the third book in Rebecca Yaros's Empyrean series.
The Empyrean series. Heard so much about this one, especially this latest installment. Lots of buzz, lots of excitement from what I've seen.
Yeah, and we like to do things a little differently here. We're not just summarizing the plot. We're actually basing this whole deep dive on a review we found, a really in-depth one that kind of dissects what makes Onyx Storm tick.
Sounds intriguing. So we're using the review as our lens, our guide to explore the book's core elements and themes.
Exactly. Think of it as, like we're mining this review for those golden nuggets of insight.
Love that analogy. Mining for gold in a world of dragons. Seems fitting.
Right. So let's get to it. Right off the bat, the review puts us back at Basgith War College with Violet Sorrengail. You'd think a fortified college would be the safest place, right?
You'd think so, right? Like, where else would you be safer than a war college?
But no. This place is crawling with dark wielders and, have you heard of Vinen?
Oh, yeah. Those are not creatures you want to mess with. Nasty, insidious things.
Yeah, apparently they're managing to get inside the college.
Inside? How?
The review doesn't really go into details, but it paints this picture of constant danger. Violet's not just studying and training, she's fighting for survival, trying to protect her friends, and she's on a mission.
A mission. Okay, to do what? What's the main objective here?
To save Xaden Rierson.
Azen. Ah, yes. The love interest. But why does he need saving?
He's been forced to use dark magic.
I see. So we're not just talking about external threats. We're talking about a battle for his soul, essentially.
Exactly. And it's tearing them apart. The reviewer really emphasizes the strain this puts on their relationship. Like, how do you stay connected to someone who's wrestling with that kind of darkness?
And that internal conflict within a character, especially in fantasy, it always adds a layer of depth and complexity, right? It makes you question, can good triumph over this darkness? Can love really conquer all? Those classic themes.
Yeah. And speaking of their connection, the reviewer calls it a bond forged in fire, trust, and shared battles. Doesn't that just hit you in the feels?
It does. It tells you they've been through hell and back together. It's not just a fleeting romance. It's forged in hardship, which, often translates to an unbreakable bond, at least in the world of fiction.
But it's not static. It keeps evolving. That's something the review really points out.
Which is so important in a series, right? You don't want the same dynamic playing out book after book. It needs to grow, change, be tested.
And it is tested.
Yeah.
Big time. Azen's dark power creates so much tension, especially because Violet has this unwavering belief in him.
Almost a blind faith, wouldn't you say? And that makes you wonder, at what point does faith become, perhaps detrimental? Is there a limit to how much one person can bear for another, even in the name of love?
It's a tough question. And it's one the reviewer makes you really think about. But it's not all gloom and doom. There are also these electric moments between them. Passion, vulnerability, heartache. It's intense.
It's that balance, right? You need the light and the darkness, the joy and the sorrow to make it feel real, to keep those pages turning.
Okay, are you ready to talk about the dragons?
Always. I mean, it's not called the Empyrean series for nothing, right? Bring on the dragons.
Well, the reviewer raves about Violet's bond with Tarn, describes him as wise, commanding, a protector, but also a mentor.
The classic elder dragon figure. The one with the centuries of experience, the deep understanding of the world, and the responsibility to guide the younger generation.
Exactly. And then there's Andarna, who's totally different, more youthful, full of curiosity, fiercely loyal.
Ah, so you have the contrasting dragon personalities, the wisdom of age versus the fire of youth. It's a great dynamic to explore.
And the reviewer stresses that both bonds are built on mutual respect. It's not just Violet commanding them around, they're partners.
Which is so important in stories like this, right? It elevates the bond beyond master and servant. It becomes a true partnership, a shared journey of growth and understanding.
And get this, Andarna's powers are really starting to emerge. The reviewer even says they could redefine what it means to be a dragon rider.
Whoa, that's huge. That suggests a potential shift in the power dynamics of the whole world, right? Like, if a dragon's power can evolve so dramatically, what does that mean for the future of riders?
Exactly. It's a big question mark that the book leaves you with.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to the world building, because the reviewer uses the word masterful to describe it.
Masterful. Okay. That's high praise.
Yeah. Yarrow's really expands on the Isles, their cultures, their history. It's so much more than just a backdrop for the action. It feels real and lived in.
And that's what draws you in, right? That sense of immersion, that feeling like you could step right into this world.
And the lore. The reviewer calls it extraordinary. There's so much detail about dragons, riders, the history of this world.
That depth of lore is what grounds a fantasy world, wouldn't you say? It gives context to the present, explains why things are the way they are. It makes the stakes feel real because they're rooted in something much larger than the immediate story.
And it's all woven together so well. The world building, the characters, the relationships, the action. It creates this really immersive experience.
A seamless blend of world building and storytelling. That's the sweet spot for fantasy, isn't it?
Absolutely. Now, overall, the reviewer calls Onyx Storm a triumph of storytelling. They specifically mention the unforgettable characters, the cinematic action, and the emotional resonance.
So it hits all the key elements. It makes you think, makes you feel, and keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah. And they highly recommend it for anyone who loves epic fantasy, especially if you're into dragons, romance, and action.
Sounds like it ticks all the boxes for a good fantasy read.
But here's what really got me. The reviewer's personal reaction to the ending. They basically say, UGH that ending. They're reeling. They have so many questions, and they can't wait for the next book.
That kind of reaction, especially from someone who reads and analyzes books for a living, really tells you something. It indicates a powerful cliffhanger, something that leaves you breathless and desperate for more.
Exactly. Okay, before we wrap up, the review gives us a bit of background on Rebecca Yarros herself.
Oh, always interesting to learn a bit about the author behind the words.
So she's a #1 New York Times bestselling author,
Yeah.
which, is pretty impressive.
Definitely speaks to her talent and the connection she makes with readers.
And apparently, she's a second-generation Army brat, married to a military hero.
Interesting. That background might inform some of the themes in her work, don't you think? The sense of duty, sacrifice, the intensity of the bonds forged under pressure.
It makes you think. And get this, she's a mother of 6, lives in Colorado with a bunch of pets. It's kind of heartwarming to think about, This woman who creates these epic worlds also has this normal, busy family life.
It humanizes her, right? Makes her relatable, even though she's achieved such great success.
And to top it off, she has a nonprofit, One October, that helps children in the foster system.
Wow, that's commendable. Using her platform to make a difference.
Okay, so to wrap it all up for you, Onyx Storm sounds like a wild ride. Incredible characters, intense relationships, a world that just sucks you in, and of course, those amazing dragons. It's a story about facing your fears, fighting for what you believe in, and maybe even finding love in the darkest of places.
It's about those epic battles, both internal and external, and those quiet moments of connection that make it all worthwhile.
And if the reviewer's reaction is any indication, be prepared for a cliffhanger ending that will leave you wanting more.
Definitely sounds like a book that stays with you long after you finish the last page.
Well, that's Onyx Storm in a nutshell, or at least our take on it through this incredible review. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure to explore these worlds with you.
Now, before you go, we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We know the reviewer had a pretty strong reaction to the ending, so let's talk about cliffhangers. What kind of cliffhanger do you think is most effective in a fantasy novel? Is it a character's life hanging in the balance? A shocking revelation that changes everything you thought you knew? Or maybe a sudden twist in the plot that leaves you completely blindsided? Think about it. What kind of ending would leave you absolutely desperate for the next installment? Let us know.
The best cliffhangers leave you with more questions than answers, keep those theories brewing, and have you counting down the days until the next book.
Exactly. So until next time, keep exploring those fantastical worlds.
And keep those pages turning.